Okay, I guess we're live, Fred. Hey, good
Yeah.
morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, April 16th, 2025, and this is not two guys drinking coffee. This is the episode 001, our first episode of the Patriot Pulse Podcast. I'd like to welcome you all here. I'm Jim T.
And I'm Fred.
And you got Fred with us here, and this is this is an interesting kickoff here because it feels a little weird because after 4 years, basically, what was it, 204 episodes, I think, Fred, of
204, yeah.
doing it
Easy.
one way.
Mhm.
We're embarking on a new endeavor here, and we got Kelly on already this morning. Good morning, Kelly, my friend from Washington State. Good to see you on here. But even though, and I'm working on a couple things in the background here to let's see, we're going to turn off just so you'll know, for anybody that's wanting to watch us on Rumble. Let's see here. Save post. I've got to get X going here. So X is live. Facebook is live, and we're probably live on Twitch and Kick as well, I believe. So, anyways, we're doing things a little bit different. I'm not going out to as many platforms as we did with two guys, but the primary ones. We got the Facebook, and I'm assuming if you're watching us on Facebook, you're watching us on the Two Guys Drinking Coffee page, because Facebook, in their infinite wisdom, says that we are not allowed to go live yet. We have enough followers on our page to qualify, but we
You're
don't.
definitely going on that one.
We don't. They make us wait 60 days. I'm not sure why. What the key to 60 days is, but for the first couple months, you're going to find us on the Two Guys Facebook page or X. And after I get Rumble fixed, it'll be on Rumble as well. So, anyways, we're glad you're here. As we always do, first, a little housekeeping. We want you to click like and share, if you would, on this to help us get out there. And again, you can follow us on X, Rumble, Kick, Twitch. And we're still going to upload our recorded podcast to several of our other ones, especially the ones that we only go out to on audio. For example, we upload to Podbean, which broadcasts it out to iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and a couple of other audio-only podcasts. So you can find us a lot of places, and we want to hopefully get as good a following on this podcast as we did on Two Guys. So before we get started, Fred, is there anything you want to mention, or we want to get right into the notes?
No, we're just opening a new door and moving on to something else. That's all. I'm ready to see what everybody's got to say.
All right.
Everything's
Our
good.
other friend Kelly from over in Warren's with us too. Are you watching the comments on Facebook, Fred?
Yes, I got them on my page here. Mm-hmm.
All right. By the way, I switched mugs here. This is my music mug. You can't see it. I realize it's pretty far away, but this mug has two sides of nothing but guitar chords on it. So this is my music mug. And unfortunately, I don't know. It's not filled with coffee. It's filled with chocolate milk. So I'm a chocolate milk drinker. So let's get into let me see where my mouse is here. Right. So, hey, the blogosphere has been blowing up lately with talk of financial collapse, tariffs, resets ready to take place. The political landscape of America right now is real, especially as it's heading into the midterm elections, is getting kind of crazy. And still, a lot of people are citing biblical prophecy. I think you follow some of those people too that that do the prophecy, Fred, don't you?
I've
Yeah,
seen a lot of it.
yeah. So they're still saying, we're headed towards the end times. It's all playing out right before our eyes. All these things could be related, but some say it's all part of a larger plan, while others say it's just 100% biblical in nature. In other words, this is all happening according to God's plan, and I believe He is in control. So don't get me wrong there, but He uses people in their plans also, or puts His plans into their way of thinking to make things happen. So what I wanted to do, hopefully, Fred, we can take a look at what they're saying, what they're saying, and decide for ourselves. And one of the things that we're going to do a little differently on this podcast, as opposed to before, is we want to engage our listeners, because we're going to, as we get through here, we're going to ask questions, and hopefully we'll get some answers and hear what you folks are saying about these topics. But the first one I wanted to mention, as a matter of fact, I posted this on our Facebook page. There is a lady by the name of Mindy Robinson. I don't know who she is, but she asked a list of very good questions, and I'm going to read them here. Um, I'm going to read the most important ones anyway. I mean, she had a list here. We could be here all morning just reading her questions. So I'm going to kind of cherry pick some of her questions out of here, and at the end here, we'll kind of see what y'all think. The questions she had have to do with, now we got Trump in office, we got a new regime, and we've got his people in it, the very important positions in the government.
Right.
She's asking the question, are we ever going to get answers about things that have happened and have up until now been brushed under the carpet? So, for example, will we ever find out who is really running the Biden administration, since he clearly wasn't doing it himself? He wasn't even signing documents himself. They were using what did they call that? An auto pen, Fred?
The auto
Or
pen,
something
almost
like that,
everything.
auto signature.
Everything.
Yeah, it was auto pen. And that brought into question about the pardons. He may not even have known he pardoned all these people, because they were all those pardons were signed with an auto pen,
And they were last minute.
Yeah, the last day, I think. Or why are foreign countries allowed to donate to, buy out, and control our politicians? Is there a connection there that we, you see a reluctance in our Congress to really push, for investigations and charges to be brought. Now, I know they don't have the ability to bring charges, but they can certainly have, how do I want to say it, investigations that they can then refer over to the DOJ. So they do have some, they do have some ability there. But if they're all bought and paid for, they're not going to turn on their handlers, you think? So
Exactly.
yeah. So, anyways, she brought up some things about the 2020 election, which if you've been listening to me for the last 4 years, and Fred, I think you'll agree that the 2020 election definitely was stolen, but nothing has ever come about. Nothing. I mean, nobody's gone to jail. Nobody's been prosecuted. No governors like Tom Wolf in Pennsylvania, who orchestrated this deal. Oh, I forgot to put the studio lighting on there. It's now a little less dark for me here. So, anyways, she asked about that. Here's a good one. This is my favorite. Fauci and all the people that have gone that literally murdered millions of people worldwide with the jab. Of course, Fauci got a blanket pardon from Biden, and oops, I think
Your
we
screen
lost
went dark there, buddy.
Yeah, we lost our camera for some reason. Bear with me here a minute, guys.
I'm still here.
Yeah, keep talking, Fred.
I was going to say, the truth of the matter is, I think they're trying to make sure their investigations are thorough. Because if you make a charge now, we know that a lot of the judges today are bought and paid for. They're put in positions to make decisions that are based on political influence, not based on justice or law. So that's the problem. Thank God this recent court case just went through, and now they can't overturn the president. The judges can't, but they're hiring these judges, and these judges are making decisions based on political influence, nothing else. Law doesn't matter as long as the money's right.
You're doing good there, Fred. Keep going.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. I think a lot of I think they're doing detailed investigations into most of these cases that we know that these people should be in jail. I mean, come on. Dr. Fauci definitely should be in jail. Everybody knows. Everybody calls this conspiracy theory, but everybody knows it's true now. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're just trying, and they're trying to cover up. And then they come up with other stories to keep you looking away from the truth. They'll create a story. These protests, if you do your researches, most of their protests that they're doing, these people are being paid to stand and hold a pre-made sign that's been given to them. I mean, half of it's all bogus. And you go up and ask these people what they're standing for. A lot of the times they're going to tell you, there you go. I don't know, because they're paid for it.
Yeah, I'm not there yet, but
Uh-huh.
now that I got the camera working again.
I mean, there's even evidence coming out about the attempted assassination. We know what they're doing.
I'm back.
There he is.
My camera has a strange thing. I've got it plugged into AC, which means it should just run off the AC. But the battery, if the battery goes low, even though it's running off AC, it knocks me off. So I got to figure that one out. But that's what happened, folks. That's why I went blank there for a minute. Although I go blank a lot of times, I guess. Where were we? Fauci?
Dr. Fauci and his fake ouchie.
Fake ouchie. Hey, we got a lot of people jumping on this morning. Appreciate
Quite
it.
a few.
Tom mentioned here, let's see, talk is cheap, wants real justice. Yeah, I'll tell you what, talk is cheap. And one of the things that I want to say this, I always had a problem with some, as a matter of fact, I even called Rand Paul out recently. I sent him an email. You know, he had Fauci against the ropes and caught him in lies. You know, he was lying to Congress, but he let him off the hook. You know, and then the emails coming out saying I'm fighting for you folks. Donate to my campaign. Yeah. So are the and this is going back to the other point. Are they doing this just to gain campaign money? I don't know. I mean, are they ever really going to do anything? So, anyways, let's see what else she had to say here. How about the Hunter Biden laptop cover up? Okay, why hasn't anybody gone to jail on that? And I'm gonna bring up another point here that just came up, and it maybe in my notes later on. But why is it that Kash Patel, and I want your opinion on this too, Fred, and anybody else that wants to opine on this. Kash Patel just appointed as deputy director of the Washington Bureau of the FBI, a gentleman, and his name escapes me right off the top. I could find it, I'm sure, on Facebook. But why did he appoint a guy that was one of the lead inquisitors? Let's put it that way. And I bring this back to the Inquisition of the Middle Ages. You know, this was an inquisition. This was, charging people, throwing them in jail without charging them, throwing them in jail without trials, and keeping in jail. Some I don't know if they're all out now or not. Trump was was doing pardons and getting them out. Hopefully they're all out. If anybody knows online here whether all the J6ers are out, let me know. I appreciate it. I see Randy's on, and I know he and Kim have been in touch with some of the people that were keeping the vigil outside of the J6 gulag down there. Maybe he knows. But this guy who went after the J6ers, ferociously, is now been promoted to deputy director of the Washington Bureau. Riddle me that one, Batman. What do you think?
That's a strange one. That's definitely a strange one. I don't understand how.
Yeah.
That's, oh my goodness.
And I think who's the deputy director of the FBI? You just mentioned it. Dan Bongino.
Dan Bongino. Yeah.
Yeah. He says you don't always know what's going on behind the scenes. So,
right.
It almost sounds like one of those, trust the plan, but we still need to start getting answers. And don't get me wrong, this is not a anti-Trump rant by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just saying, now that we got people in there that hopefully that we want is going to work for the people, maybe we'll start getting some answers to these questions. Nobody was held accountable. And Tom online here, Tom, our friend down in Penfield, will being not retired, but a military guy, the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan, where we left how many soldiers to die in the teens, 16, something like that, soldiers to die. Plus they left billions, literally billions of dollars worth of equipment over there for the Taliban and all the people that hate us and the terrorists to get and use. And I don't know nobody's been held accountable for that. And let's see what else she had to say in here. The other one is one of my favorites that I've been talking about for the last 4 years is the geoengineering. I know in this state of Pennsylvania, Senator Doug Mastriano, is introduced a bill to make it illegal to do the spraying in our skies over the state of Pennsylvania. And believe it or not, you wouldn't think anybody would be opposed to this, but there are people in the Senate and the House that are fighting this. Why would anybody in their right mind promote spraying our skies with chemicals that are poisons, that are bad for the environment? They're bad for us. We're breathing this stuff in. It's aluminum and barium, and I've seen the list of chemicals that they're finding, and it's scary. They're carcinogens, but yet they're still doing it. So how do we get answers to these questions? How do we make a difference? How do we make our elected representatives who work for us? Remember, they work for us. We're not their subjects. They're there in either Harrisburg or whatever other state capital you want to talk about, or Washington, D.C. They're there to serve the people. If we have questions, if there's problems going on that is against the people, then they should be doing something about it. Wouldn't you think?
Mm-hmm.
So what do we do? What do we do to make that happen? Who do we ask? I'm going to look at a couple of. Christy, you said something about Dan was currently assigned 20 Secret Service for protecting due to whatever. I don't know who Dan is you're talking about, or was that
Dan Bongino?
Who's that? Oh,
I think he's thinking about Don Bongino.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, he's been
I
threatened.
agree with you. It's just like trusting the process, like you said. But the scary part is, how long do you wait for results? I think this is where we keep more pressure on our politicians and we get more involved, because we just can't sit back and wait. What if they never do anything?
Yeah, yeah. So let's go back to the question: who do we ask? Um, I've said this. If you've listened to us in the past, I said this: the way we got to do it, because quite frankly, it makes us, it gives us a warm fuzzy feeling if we get together on Main Street and we hold our signs, and we either say anti this or pro this or yay us or whatever it is. But the people that are making first of all, the people that are doing the things, the perpetrators especially, they're laughing at us. They don't care if we go out in the streets. Um, they don't care if we hold signs up. And quite frankly, our elected politicians don't care either, with the
Right.
exception of a few, I'm sure. Excuse me.
I think sometimes when these guys come visit your town, you got to ask them the tough questions that nobody wants. People like to wine and dine them when they show up, give them a good meal, give them a good representation of people saying there that they support them. But nobody's asking the tough questions. How do you stand on this and how do you stand on that? That's the type of stuff we need to start doing, instead of just whining and dining them and going, yes, you're for us. But they won't answer the questions that they want that you want them to answer in front of everyone.
Yeah, Tom just wrote. I'll put it right on the screen here. I gotta get my mouse over there. Tom wrote, "We the people have to contact the so-called politicians, write them, call them," and that's what I was had put in my notes here. Is that if one or two of us call, it's not going to do anything. If tens of thousands of people call, write emails, write letters, and remind them that they are in there because they got elected, and they could be out of there just as quickly as they got elected.
Right.
Because they're not interested in working for the people. I don't care what you say. I mean, they may have all grand designs when they go into office, but I hate to say it, I think they soon become either corrupted by the system, compromised, or they just are working to protect themselves. In other words, when you get elected in the office, your first duty is to get reelected to them. I mean, that's their first duty. It's not what we want, but their goal is to get reelected, and that's what they spend their time doing. And they might show up and do a ribbon cutting for a new business or a bridge or something like that, or they'll put in ridiculous legislation. And I don't say ridiculous; it might be important to some people, but it's not impactful. Let's put it that way. It's not impactful legislation, and the legislation that is impactful usually gets shot down. And quite frankly, I'm sorry if you don't agree with it. It's a right left issue here. What little bit is being done, I think, is coming from the right side of the aisle, and it's the Democrats, the left side, that are fighting it all the way. And Tom, I know you're a Democrat, but I also know you're a patriot and you're a constitutionalist. So it's really not. Even though it is turned into a Democrat Republican issue on every topic, it is an American issue. If we look at
100%.
What's that?
100%. That's what we need to get back to. It's about America. It's not about the party you stand for. We have become a nation of people that'll do whatever the party we like or prefer does, even if it's wrong. It doesn't matter. That's the party I'm supporting. It's like rooting for a football team or rooting for a basketball team or a sporting event. It's stupid. It's not about that. It's about America, and not just the presidential seat. All the seats, your local elections, your non-primary elections, your teachers, your school boards, your mayor, your sheriff, all that stuff should matter.
So how do we get people involved? And I'll pose that question to everybody that's online too. because as a matter of fact, I had on here. Let me see if I can bring that back up. It was interesting.
Kelly,
I'm
that's
not
very good.
calling anybody out. I'm going to share a screen here. I posted this on actually about 3 pages. My own, the Two Guys Drinking Coffee page, and the Patriot Pulse podcast, which is what you're seeing right here. This came from this was from an email that I received from the teapartypatriots.org. I get their emails for whatever, but they are trying to organize Make America First, a day of action on April 26, 2025. And this is a day to demonstrate the overwhelming support that exists for passing and implementing President Trump's America First agenda. Now, you can organize events. You can go, start a letter writing campaign. There's a number of different things that can be done, but you got to take the initiative to do it. And when I put that out there, quite frankly, with the exception of a couple comments, it was like crickets. So what's the problem? Why are people not willing to either get involved or say somebody else will do it? I don't have time, or I don't. I'm asking that question. What's stopping you? You can't compare it to the Democrats because they're all being paid. All the protesters for the radical left are being paid by George Soros and all of his myriad of foundations. But so my thought is, we don't do it because, first of all, most of us work. We
That's
don't
a
have
big part.
time. We don't have time to go march in the streets. But I just think that for whatever reason, the conservatives don't get as vocal, and I'm not sure why, because it's important.
I'm telling you, people could get involved, but it involves putting yourself out there so that people may see you. I mean, it's like what we talked about on Two Guys Drinking Coffee before, the Black Robe Regiment. Pastors can get involved with this and make huge impacts, but they won't.
Well, no, because they're afraid of getting their 501c3 taken away.
But they can't. But they should. I think they all should. And then not only that, any type of event where you got a voice to speak out, you should speak out. If you're worried about your job, then you don't trust God.
Yeah. Here's one. Yeah, that's a good point there. This is Tom's. And I'm putting this up here because Tom, I did the same thing. I can't remember what the issue was, but it was back during the scamdemic. Sometime between 21 and 24. I can't remember exactly when, but it was a jugular issue, and I wrote to all 100 senators and also to my representative in the Congress here, expressed my concern, my opinion, and any reply I got from anybody other than the 2 Pennsylvania senators was, paraphrasing here, but "You're not in my district. Thanks for writing. Have a good day." And that's about what it amounts to. So again, they'll only listen to the people that can affect their paycheck. In the case of representatives 2 years down the road, or in senators, they got 6-year terms, I think. Yeah, 6-year terms.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just reading Tom's other message here, other comment here. So yeah. So and I do know, Tom, you're America First, because even though you're a Democrat, you vote for the people that are, and I'll let you say it yourself if you want, but you vote for the people that are going to do what's right for America, regardless of party. And I don't disagree with that, although I haven't found a Democrat worth voting for since probably John Kennedy. But that's another story. So, So, anyways, why, we need to get involved. We need to be engaged as citizens of the United States of America, because it really does come back to us. If you want to put blame on somebody for the way this country is right now, look in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
I look in the mirror every morning, and it's we collectively, I'm not pointing anybody out, we collectively have allowed this to happen by our apathy, by our non participation in government affairs, and our unwillingness to speak out other than in our own sphere of influence. And politicians have come to learn long time ago that nobody does anything if they do nefarious stuff. So what do we expect them to do?
And I kind of agree with Kelly on her little comment there. If you started paying these politicians the same Social Security retirement that we get, then I guarantee you they'll care a little bit more instead of getting their pay for life.
Yeah. How do we do that though? That's the other thing I don't like about our government. The government gets to decide all their own salaries, their raises. How many times have we heard that they voted on huge pay raises in the middle of the night? Nobody's paying attention. Okay. Excuse me, had to get a drink. So yes, I agree 100%. But who makes the rules? The Congress makes the rules. It's just like term limits. I don't know where I fall on term limits. Term limits. I can't remember who it was that said it. I think it was Mitch McConnell, which almost makes me throw up in my mouth a little bit,
Right.
because I think he's the biggest rhino in Washington, D.C. But he says there's already term limits, and those term limits are elections. I agree with him on that.
Mm-hmm.
If a politician is not doing what you want that person to do, why in the heck do you keep voting them in?
Because they
Think about
vote by their party.
it.
And
But
that's the sad part.
yeah, well, quite frankly, Fred, I vote by party too. In other words, unless there was, like I said, unless there was a Democrat that I thought could really do something, or that I knew personally, or whatever, I'm not going to vote for a Democrat. But where we can make the differences in the primary. All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's say you're a Republican only, or even a Democrat only. I'm not sure how many Democrats watch these podcasts, either two guys or now the Patriot Pulse. But a lot of times we hold our nose and vote for the candidate of our party, as you said, Fred, that because we don't want to vote for the other party. Well, why don't we get active in the primary and primary
Exactly.
these losers out of there? Get them out so that we can get a good person in the general election.
Right. Right. But like the reason why I say that is because Kamala got in without a vote. If they really cared about who was running in their party, they would have had a vote and got somebody in there that everybody voted for instead of just throwing her in the position.
Yeah. So Kelly says maybe the raises should be a question on the ballot. And again, you can put questions on a ballot, and it's a little bit more easy on the local and state elections where they have questions like that. I don't know if I've ever seen it on a national level, but there again, that's a question that if we have that question, we got to do the research. We got to find out the answer to that. How do we affect a change? How do we affect a change at the national level if the people don't agree with it? And Kelly, to your point, yes, I agree. These people that are in Washington D.C., it's just like AOC recently went in there, dirt poor. I think she might have still been in debt with her school loans, but
Mm-hmm.
now I think her net worth right now is listed at $20 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me how that happens. Okay.
And she was one of the people considered getting her college debt paid off too by Biden.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just crazy. But how do we how do we affect the change? How do we make these people listen to us? How do we make them do what we, the people, want them to do? And I think, again, part of the problem is that it's even like right now, there were 70 some million people that ushered Trump back into office in November. Of those 70 some million people, how many are still active? How many are working real hard to make sure that we as conservatives have, and patriots, I won't just call conservatives, I'll call patriots. We as patriots have the right people reelected in the midterms, because you know as well as I do, if the Democrats take control of one or both of the houses in the midterms, it's over for Trump's agenda. It's just not going to happen. And
Right.
I'll tell you what, if the House flips in the midterm, I don't even give it a day before they put it through the first impeachment inquiry or whatever
Right. Right.
whatever they do from a legal point of view. But
See, our
they'll
problem
impeach
is
him. Yeah,
what
go
our
ahead.
biggest problem is. We celebrate the minor victories, but they ignore the major stuff we need to accomplish. Good example would be, we won the president. Celebrate. Don't do anything else. Don't get involved in politics. Don't talk to your Congress people. Don't get involved in anything. We got the president. But it's the same thing with the school board. We got the mask off. Now nobody else shows up to school board meetings anymore because the masks are off. They get that little minor victory and they're not happy with pushing to try to clean everything up. It's like, well, someone just crapped all over the floor, but I got my room clean, so that's good enough. So I ain't got to clean the hallway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I didn't want to say the real word.
No, I mean, you're right. I mean, in other words, collectively, we got Trump elected. He put some good people in his cabinet. We think things are going to be getting done now. So we can just sit back and go about our lives and go about, whatever we're doing. We don't have to pay attention anymore to what's going on. But it's just what we started talking about here. We got good people in there, and still I'm not seeing a lot of stuff getting done. So what do I got to do? Me as a concerned citizen, and I put on this on everybody, but me as a concerned citizen, my obligation is to stay involved, to reach out to the representatives, to the senators and the congressmen in our state level, and even as you point out, Fred, at the local level. But we focus on the national, because that impacts the way the country goes. All right.
I
We
agree.
got to stay involved in local politics. They say all politics is local. Well, it is, from a point of view as we all get a vote on who goes to Harrisburg or Albany or Eugene or Seattle, wherever you're at, whatever your state capital is. And we get a voice on who goes to the Washington, D.C., but it's a smaller voice. In other words, when we elect somebody, when we elect a couple senators, that's 2 senators out of 100, from Pennsylvania, for example. So again, and Tom just echoed it. Pennsylvania primaries and other states, of course, are going to be the most important primaries ever.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because if we go business as usual, if we go, let's see, I've got my Republican. My Republic. All right, this is not going to come as a shock because I've called him out before. Glenn Thompson is our congressman for this area. I won't out and out call him a rhino, but I think he's a do nothing congressman. But we can't get anybody to run against this guy in the primary. Why? Because he has a lot of support. He raises a lot of money. I'm not going to make accusations as to why he raises a lot of money or, whose hand he has to shake to get that money. But the last time it was in, I think I think he ran in 24 again. Can't remember. He's not up this time, but I put it out there on the air on the podcast, and everybody I talked to, let's find somebody to run against him in the primary. And not one, we couldn't get anybody to step up and say, to say they'll run. I think part of the problem is who wants to go to the swamp in Washington, D.C. Think about it.
That's true.
If you're a good, moral, upstanding person, why do you want to throw yourself into the quagmire, the swamp, the debauchery that is Washington, D.C.?
A lot of them I think are just afraid. They worry about threats. They worry about, I don't know. I think it's, I just think that's what it is. People are afraid out of the little things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There is a, and I don't have anything to cite here, but I've heard it mentioned many times before, where people go into Congress with very good intentions, and then they get compromised. How do they get compromised? They get, I got to get back to you, Fran. I got to reread this after I finish my thought here. They get compromised by, they get invited to a party, they get drunk, they get slipped, some drugs or something knocks them out. Next thing you know, they're in some room, with underage girls, and they're on film, and they say, okay, if you don't do exactly what we say, this is going public. Then they own them. So Fran, what did you mean? Hey, let's see here. JT sounds a lot like GT. Oh, no, JT, thanks. I don't think I talk the same way GT does. Let's put it that way. Or say the same things, but JT and GT, yeah. And where was that other comment up here? I got to find it. I can't find it now, but it just comes back to the primaries and trying to get people. Tom even agreed that primaries are as important as like the 2024 election. Christie agreed on the blackmail tactics. So what? By the way, I consider myself Tea Party Democrat, much different than a Democrat rat. Yeah, Tea Party. The Tea Party was a good movement while it was going. Don't think it's too active right now. But I've got another question here because we're talking national politics, and I'll throw this question out because I think it leads to what is Trump's overall plans. Because I have a feeling it's, and I hate to say trust the plan, but I think there is a plan in place. In what I called it is deconstruction. Think about this. If you don't like what's going on in Washington, you can't automatically just flip a switch and change things. You got to replace, you got to tear down the system before you can replace it with a better one. And my question is that what we're seeing right now? Is this being done to bring about, and I won't say the great reset of the WEF and the Klaus Schwabs, but a reset of the United States of America? Are the things that, take tariffs, for example. Tariffs and the fluctuating stock market go hand in hand, and especially the Democrats are going off the rails, because every time Trump says something about a tariff, the stock market reacts, and he's trying to destroy the economy and all of that. But when it comes to tariffs, they've been using tariffs since, when I say they, presidents have been using tariffs
forever.
1790. I looked that up. The first tariffs were brought into play in 1790. And every single president from 1790 till today has either carried on existing tariffs or they have implemented new tariffs or changed tariffs. So this is nothing new. Why are people are losing their collective minds because because he's putting tariffs in place, but he's doing it for a reason, I believe. Okay. And that reason, I think, is to keep people on their. All right, it's just like I got a clip here. I got to play this. This is, and I think we can explain my position a little bit better here. But this is, if anybody have you ever seen the movie Red October? It's one of my favorite movies. There's a scene in here, and you'll probably recognize it.
Turning straight at him. Torpedoes still on our tail.
The hard part about playing chicken is knowing when to flinch.
Right there. The hard part about playing chicken is knowing when to flinch. And I think what Trump is doing right now is he's playing chicken with the rest of the world, with especially China, but with the rest of the world. And it's like a big monopoly game. I don't know, but it's and I hate to relegate national politics to a game, but he knows how to make a deal. He knows how to get things done. And there's strategies in creating that deal.
It's common sense. And if you look at it, I mean, come on, if I borrow $1 from you, I have to pay. If I give you $1, you got to give me back $1.25. But if I borrow $1 from you, I got to pay you back $2. They're hitting us with like 200% tariffs, and some of them are even high. I mean, just ridiculous tariffs. But yet they have a problem. And just look at every president that has successfully used tariffs. It has worked. And the bottom line is, look what's happening. There's businesses, auto industries are bringing factories back to America. That's going to create jobs for America. It's about time that we stop looking on the outside like we're rich, but we actually can have money for people. The working man can actually make a profit and have something to show for it. But we work and we give away more than 50% of our money to the government, and they give it to other countries.
Yeah. Well, that's another. We weren't even planning on going down this.
I know.
Rabbit hole here, but think about this: we're $36 trillion in debt, and we're still giving billions and billions of dollars to countries that hate us and would rather like to see our destruction. And people don't realize, when I say people, I think our own people here don't realize that the United States has been the piggy bank for the world for a lot of years. And what do we have to show for it? A skyrocketing debt. And again, I think our politicians are responsible for that because, in my opinion, I can't prove this and nobody can, which is why it still goes on, is that, okay, we vote to send, let's say we vote to send $50 billion to Ukraine. All right. Where does that $50 billion go? Is there any accounting for that? No.
They said they don't have to give you that information.
Right. So now, if Ukraine gets 50 billion, maybe they funnel back a billion or two back to the United States, laundered all nice and clean. And whose pockets is that going into? I'll ask you that. What do you all think? Whoever's on, Fred, your thoughts? Anybody online that want to?
There's no way. There's no way a person just make, what is it, 129,000? I think they want to get in their position. How do you turn that into $29 million in 6 years? Since we were talking about AOC earlier, they say she's worth $29 million. How does she get that much value on $100,000 salary? Because I'm pretty sure there's some people that are making that kind of money that are nowhere near what she's making. It doesn't make any sense. There's got to be something corrupt going on for you to be that wealthy in that short period of time.
Yeah. And has anybody ever, where's the IRS on this? All right. So if I'm a politician and my net worth has gone from maybe in some cases a negative net worth because they were in debt before they got into Congress. If my net worth has skyrocketed in a few years to multiple millions of dollars on 100 and, as you say, 100 and some. I think it
No,
depends on if they're committee chairs or whatever, but let's say
exactly,
somewhere
exactly. It
between
varies.
130 and $180,000 a year. First of all, I think that kind of money for what they do is obscene anyway. But how do they turn that into multi-million dollars of net worth? And they do it either one of two ways. Either they're getting kickbacks, or
Absolutely.
they're doing insider trading and they're making a killing on the stock market. Tell me another way they're doing it.
Because the IRS doesn't audit. The IRS doesn't audit the rich. They only audit blue collar workers and political candidates they don't like. That's the only people they audit. They don't touch these multimillionaire politicians, but they will touch a blue collar worker, and they will go after any politician they don't like.
Yeah. Good point. I mean, we saw that under the Obama administration, and also on the Biden administration. The IRS was weaponized against conservatives. And on the tariffs, Kelly also makes a good point. And you mentioned too, Fred, about bringing the long-term goals to bringing the jobs, bringing the manufacturing back to this country.
Exactly.
I did a post about. Let me see here if I can find it. I did a post about the tariffs here. Oh, come on. No, I'm not seeing it. Oh, right here it is. And I'll share the screen and read it to you here. Hold on, right here. Sorry about that. Share screen, Facebook. Okay, China paused critical. This was a headline I got from an email from usconstitution.net. China pauses crucial exports, and consumers will feel this one. Like they're trying to scare us. They're going to feel our prices are going to go crazy. Well, this headline, and I'll read right off this. So this headline alone should wake up everyone to the existential threat that China poses. Instead of people being up in arms over some rising prices in goods from China, we should be mad as hell that a communist regime can have that much control over our lives. So it may take some short-term pain, but the end result of what Trump is trying to do, or is what he's doing, will be well worth it, because we will bring the jobs, we'll bring the manufacturing back to this, and we'll only trade with countries that want to trade fairly. So maybe there is products from another country that we can still trade on. We don't have to bring everything back. We need to have options. For example, Kelly, let me stop sharing here. Kelly mentioned in here, like the meds, the steel, coming in from other countries. So maybe, we up our steel production, we up our pharmaceutical manufacture, although pharmaceuticals is another area that I don't like. But in other words, instead of buying our medicine that's made in India, or it's made in China, or it's made in some Mexico, why don't we have the option to buy meds that are made in the United States? So anyway,
Exactly.
So that's what he's also trying to do, is bring it back. So, but what we need to do as people is, I'm sorry, just suck it up and see what happens.
Right.
If your price of your toothpaste goes up a little bit, all right, well, just deal with it in the short term and see what happens. If nothing happens in 4 years, you can say, man, did we get bamboozled again? It's the same old. But we voted this guy in. We trust him to put the people in place. Has it been 100 days yet, Fred?
No.
No.
What I find really funny is all these people say that Trump's getting in there just to save all of his rich and super rich friends. This is what I hear people say locally who are Democrats. But he proposed an issue where anybody making less than $150,000 doesn't have to pay tax, and they don't support that because, you know why? They would rather have to pay the taxes. That doesn't make no sense to me at all. But that's how dumb some of the arguments come from the Democrats. I believe the Democrats branching into two different parties. You got the modern day Democrat, and then you got these extremists.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I forgot. I kind of lost track of where we were going here.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. I got off on my own tangent there, but so the question I have, and you can all answer this: do you think Trump's apparent, again, waffling because he goes, okay, I'm putting these tariffs on, now I'm going to pause them, so on, so waffling or changing direction is by design, or is he trying to back away from his original intent? What do you think?
Yeah,
Do you think this is a negotiating tactic?
I think it is to bring. It's to bring. It's to bring. I think technically he's trying to bring factories back to America, and that's what we need, because we need to stop being just consumers instead of producers.
Yeah. Okay. Tom made a good point, and I'll tell you what, I'm trying to do this too. I'm not against every product that's not made in America, but I'm going out of my way to look at the products, and if it says made in China, I will not buy it. I will not,
Mm-hmm.
because the best way we can take China down is to destroy their economy. And the best, one of the reasons why the United States is in the position we are from a strength point of view is we have one of the largest economies in the world from a consumer point of view. If we
Right.
stop buying goods and services, if we stop buying Chinese made products, what do you think that's going to do to the Chinese economy?
It's going to blow them up, because their people don't buy what they produce. We buy what they produce. They need us more than they're willing to admit. And most people don't think that, well, just China's are just so smart. No, they reproduce everything that they see and resell them in their country. That's exactly what Michael Jordan just sued Nike over, because they were making fake Nikes and selling them and making money behind his back.
Mm-hmm. So why do you think so many, well, on the left, they're against everything. All right. They're against everything. But even the so-called neutral or even the conservatives are saying, what's going on with these tariffs? Why do you think they're good for this country? They really are. The short-term pain, yes, I'll agree. And I've got a friend that said that, and I won't even say he or she because I don't want to give it away in any sense, but they are looking at they're looking at their investment. They say, oh my gosh, my investments went down 17% since this whole tariff thing started. Oh my God, I'm going to lose my life savings. Nobody's going to lose their life savings.
No.
And if the stock market goes down, eventually there's going to be a rebound. And quite frankly, I'm not in the stock market, so you can take this with a grain of salt. But I think this is all make-believe monopoly money in the stock market. Companies, government, they've manipulated the price of stocks. They can make it go up and down just by an announcement out of Washington, D.C. So all of the money, there's a whole bunch of paper millionaires in this country right now. And it's all based on this thing we call stocks, and it's in our investments. And it might be, you might look at it as real because you can look at a piece of paper and you can say, oh, look at my portfolio is $7 million. Oh, but I just lost 17%. Oh my God, I just lost $799,000. No, you didn't, because you didn't have the $799,000 in your pocket to begin with.
True.
When you're playing the stock market, you're playing a game of Monopoly, and it's at the end where you can count your money. But I'll tell you what, in my case, I like to invest in tangibles. So I can't afford gold. Silver, real estate, anything that you can have that is yours and you can say is yours. But the stock market is so darn, I don't know. It's so manipulated that I think it's a bad investment. Personal opinion.
Right.
Yeah, Kelly made another good point. China steals our intellectual property. and we can't sue. Did you know, and I'm probably telling you something you already know, when a company wants to go into China and set up manufacturing or what, do you know they have to give them they give the CCP all their intellectual property
Mm-hmm.
in order to do business in China? Let's say you've got a patent. Let's say you've got, trade secrets as part of your product. In order to go into China, you have to give that up to the CCP, share it with them. So in other words, they have the same information that you have. So when are
Nobody
they going
goes
to
there.
stop doing that?
That's how they keep us out of their market, because most people are not going to give all their secrets to them. So therefore, they keep us out of China, because Trump, even before he became the president, tried to do business in China, but China wanted all that information and he wouldn't give it to them.
I saw a couple on here that said they lost the feed for a minute. I don't know if you're watching. You're watching on Facebook, so I don't know if Facebook is dinking around with us or not. We didn't show anything.
I still got it going pretty good here.
Yeah. So, anyways, but it's 10 o'clock. I really, just like before, I put all these notes down. We never get to all of them. I wanted to talk about the illegal alien thing and
Yeah.
the judges. Give me your opinion. Also, these judges are trying to tell Trump what. Now, keep in mind, immigration is under the executive branch and their responsibility. How do these judges, especially the ones that are district judges, district federal judges? I mean, these people are. I mean, you might as well be in traffic court, okay? And they're all usually appointed because of some political affiliation. But what do you think about the judiciary trying to dictate what Trump does with regard to, well, not just Trump, but his immigration policies and the people that work for him, saying that we can't deport people, or the ones that right now are. There's a senator from Maryland that's going down to El Salvador to lobby to get an MS-13 gang member brought
Back.
out of prison in El Salvador and brought back to Maryland. This guy, he is literally Fruit Loops. Come
Right.
on now. Answer that one for me. What is going through these people's minds and these judges that say you can't deport terrorists because we want to keep them in this country. You can't deport gang members that murder and rape and otherwise break the law because we want to keep them in this country. Why would they want to keep them in this country? First of all,
well, first, Salvador said no, because they're not letting the terrorists free. So therefore, they're burned in that, and they don't have to comply to U.S. law, U.S. judges. So therefore, they're going to lose out in that one.
Yeah. So I don't know what's going on with these activist judges, and that's going to give me an opportunity to make a mention about something in Pennsylvania. If you're in Pennsylvania, we have the ability right now in this coming election. We've got, I think, 3 or 4 of the 7 judges. I think it's 3 judges, maybe 4, on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court that are coming up for a retention vote. And if you don't know what a retention vote is that even though they get appointed and theoretically in there for life, every 10 years they come up for a retention vote, which means it's just a vote. Do we keep you in or do we get rid of you? That's all it is. It's not running against anybody else. It's a retention vote. And we actually have the ability as conservative patriots, because keep in mind, in the election in 2020, the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania upheld all the cheating that was going on in the election and all the illegalities, the things that were being done against the law. They upheld them. Okay, so we have activist judges in the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. Pay very, very, very close attention to the ballots this year if you're in Pennsylvania. And I'll say that for all the other states too. Pay attention to your judge races or your judge retention votes. What we're pushing for, what I'm pushing for, is to say no on these judges. Do not retain them. So if you vote no and they're not retained, that will force special elections to get these Supreme Court, filled back up, and we have the opportunity to get some patriotic conservative judges that will rule by the Constitution and go by the rule of law instead of being activists. So I wanted to get that out there. I know it's 6 minutes after 10, but pay attention to your ballots, be a concerned citizen, be engaged, know what's going on, and then act on it. Act on it. But I implore everybody that's within the sound of my voice, whether it's live or recorded, if you're in Pennsylvania, vote no to retain the judges in Pennsylvania, the Supreme Court judges in Pennsylvania. It's that imperative.
Right.
So, Fred, do you got any other final comments here before we close it out?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head on that.
Yeah. So, again, everyone, I appreciate everybody's comments. It was really good. I couldn't keep up with them, a lot of them. I know, Fred, you were looking at them too. But that's really where I think we want to take this podcast, the direction. We'll put some ideas out there, but your opinions, your ideas, your thoughts are just as important as ours. And this is a free exchange of ideas on this podcast. We want to keep it going in this direction. So, matter of fact, maybe in the future, I'll put some podcast notes out ahead of time so you can see what we're going to be talking about, and you can be an active part of this podcast. So, all righty. So I appreciate everybody being on here live. We are going to try to keep this to an hour each week, which is very, very hard to do. But we appreciate you being on here for our first episode of the Patriot Pulse Podcast. And we'll see you next week, same time. One thing we are going to continue on, because we know that regardless of what we talk about, God is still on the throne. He's still in control. Nothing happens without him knowing about it or allowing it. And I believe just like Cyrus was a non-believer put in place to help the kingdom of Israel back in biblical times. Some say Trump is a modern day Cyrus. Whether we think about him, however we think about him, God could be using him, and I think he is. Is he a perfect person? No. Does he do some dumb things and say some dumb things? Yeah, but we all do. But God can still use. God uses imperfect people to do his perfect will.
You got that.
So we will always keep our eye towards God. And with that, Fred, do you want to close us out with a word of prayer?
Sure.
Okay.
I guess I want to pray right now, Lord. We're in a place where we don't know what to do without your wisdom. So we're praying, Lord, that you would give us wisdom to make the right decisions and ask for the right things, Lord, that you would bring the darkness to the light. There's so much corruption going on right now. The only way to see through it is with your vision, Lord. So we ask you would help us, you would guide us, and Lord, make people bold enough to be involved instead of sitting back and being in fear, because fear doesn't come from the Lord. It comes from the enemy, Satan. So I ask, Lord, that you would bless all the listeners and give them wisdom too, just like you give us wisdom on what we should talk about and what we should do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. And appreciate that, Fred. I'm so glad to have you on this podcast, and thank you for stepping up and saying you join me on this adventure. And everybody else, appreciate you tuning in live, or if you catch this recorded, thank you. We appreciate each and every one of you. We love you. We love the patriots out there and the ones that are fighting for this country and in part of God's army. So for today, it's kind of crappy weather around here, but I hope it's sunny and 70 wherever you are. And but for today, have a wonderful day and be blessed.
And be a blessing to others.
All right. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.